I'm sure you've heard of Mike Tyson's famous quote, every team has a plan until their players punch him in the face. So, let me tell you about my plan and about how my players punch me in the face. Here's how it was supposed to go. Step 1. The players get hired to supposedly find out what happened to a town's missing children. So they travel to the city that is just 2 days away from the capital. This will become relevant later. Step 2. The players meet with their shady client, who, and I cannot stress this enough, looks objectively evil, and are told of their real mission. The entire town, minus the children, was cursed to turn into monsters that will march straight to the capital. So the party needs to kill all of them in 7 days before the transformation occurs. Their client actually evacuated the children, unaffected by the curse, to keep them safe before the party got there. Step 3. The party finds out through minimal investigation that there is no real need to kill anyone. While the curse is indeed real, they can actually obtain a cure for it in a nearby mountain. They're going to be cutting it close, given the time limit, but they can make it. They can just go to the mountain and come back in time. Step 4. They cure the city without killing anyone and discover... Well, they could have discovered this before they set off as well, but that timing is not really relevant. That their client knew that the cure was a possibility all along, but he just preferred the murder, really. Or to be more specific, he wasn't really willing to risk failing obtaining the ingredients in time, and figured, well, there's 200 people in the city that I could kill, or I could risk not curing them and then letting those 200 people kill about 200,000 in the main capital. The party was supposed to take that in, one by one, and realize that this man who wanted to overthrow the king had some weird motivations, and even though he wanted to save people, he was very much okay with a lot of sacrifice and with basically just stacking up a huge body count to get what he wanted. It was supposed to kind of just introduce who he was as a character so that when they came into conflict later, they would really know what this dude was all about. Not really a huge arc. I expected it to take about a session at most. So, do you want to know what actually ended up happening? Because I know you have a guess. Maybe they just didn't investigate enough. Maybe they made a mistake. Oh no! No, I promise you, it's dumber than what you're thinking. So the players did get hired to find out what happened to the missing children, and they did get to the city, and they met up with the client. And, yeah, that is when things went wrong. I honestly cannot emphasize enough how evil this guy looked. So, general, pretty over-the-top evil. I thought it was kind of hammering it a bit too hard, but, it was the beginning of the arc. I wanted to make sure they understood what the character was supposed to be. And they did, which makes it worse. So they didn't really pick up on the whole hidden cure thing, but you know what? That's fine. That was entirely fine. I prepared for that. They were going to meet a cool NPC the next day that would explain how they didn't need to kill anyone and that they could just find a cure in the nearby mountain. It would be great. There would be no issues whatsoever. Everything would be great. Happy, perfect. Yeah. Only, we didn't get to the next day. Oh no. You see, this party had a fucking problem. They fucking hated waiting. And I don't mean like they hated waiting in real life, like they just had places to be or they didn't like spending too long waiting for something. I actually just think they hated the abstract concept of waiting. They didn't like the idea of their character sleeping or resting if they didn't absolutely need to, because I don't know. I really don't know. It's like, how there's a character in a bad movie always going, "There's no time, we gotta go." Yeah, that would be my players. Not their characters. I have to underline that. The players. I usually just roll with that because as a DM, I take pride in not railroading my players into anything. Whatever they do, I adjust. So, with that in mind, the party was actually suspicious of Mr. Objectively Evil, somewhere between the first and the 7th lecture about wanting to remodel the world in his image. But they couldn't really wait until morning to investigate because, So of course the rogue just rolled a nat 20 on stealth and decided to sneak into the client's bedroom while he was asleep, and again didn't wake him up because he rolled another nat 20, and I thought it was fair enough. They found out that there was a cure all along, and even though it was going to be difficult, they could still manage everything without killing a single person. So they woke up the client at knife point to discuss what they were going to do. I really want you to understand that I watched what unfolded after that in silent horror, since I didn't want to drop my poker face and show just how far off the rails they were. Which was a lot. Like, a lot. The rogue points a knife to the man's throat and says, "Why do you want us to kill the entire town instead of just going to search for the ingredients? Wouldn't that be better? Because what happens if you fail in getting those ingredients? We don't know for sure that you can get them and come back in time. The lives of about, 400 people against the lives of 10,000? Surely you understand that the gamble is not worth it." I mean, the men make some good points, the fighter says. And this is the point where I kind of start losing my shit, because the entire party just kind of goes, yeah, you know what, genocide man. He's making some solid fucking points right there. The paladin steps up and says, "Guys, we can't do that. We can't kill 400 people. Oh, thank God, I think. I mean, that's a lot of people, and there's only like 4 of us. How can we kill all of them?" Jesus fucking Christ, that's really your objection? Are you serious? Hey, we have 7 days, right? Like, that's plenty of time to like go full Saw on this entire city. And I don't mean like the sequels, I mean like the original Saw when it was actually cool. You know, put traps everywhere, get ready to set everything on fire, hide explosives, poison the water supplies. Ooh, poison the water supplies. I hadn't thought of that one. I know, right? So I sat there in horror as I realized that my players had just gone, you know what? Yeah, the villain is right. He makes some good points. They roleplayed their characters and they explained why they believed this made sense. It was kind of pushing it, but not entirely. So I wasn't really able to stop them. I mean, I could have, but then they started making plans about how to do the whole massacre and the logistics of it. So, you know, I was at a bit of a crossroads there, you know? I had planned the whole story under the assumption that my players were not the kind of people that, given the opportunity, would just go ahead and use the Behelit from Berserk. Clearly, I was wrong. So this is the point where most DMs I've talked to say they would have railroaded the player just a little bit into not doing this, especially considering the amount of prep work I had done up to this point. But here's the thing. I feel my job as a DM is to let my players have fun in a completely open game, and if I have to Todd Howard my way out of things by making a character immortal or something, I've lost. And losing is for losers, so fuck that. I'm not doing that. No, I'm petty as fuck. So I took a deep breath, and I realized that my lawful utilitarian players were looking straight at me. They didn't say anything, but they were giving me the look. You know the one. The one your players, if they are, like, you know, your friends and, like, care about you, give you when they want to convey without words the question of, yo, this is probably not what you wanted us to do, but we kind of want to do it. Are you sure you want to let us go with it? And at this point, I was deeply aware of the fact that I could still save the hours I spent preparing for this. The 1,000 of words of dialogue and descriptions, the maps that I had hand-drawn, the 3D printed models that I had prepared for a cave that in the mountain that we're supposed to go to. I could still have an arc that wasn't a nightmare. All I needed to do was to listen to that devilish voice, you know, the one that whispers to every DM's ear once a game and says, all you have to do is railroad the shit out of them, and it's fine. And I said, yep, do whatever the fuck you want. Open game, I totally prepared for this, you motherfuckers. I lied with a straight face, and then immediately went to the Unity asset store as the session was still going, and bought some assets to make a medieval city. I can't 3D model myself, but, you know, kind of short on time there, so had to improvise. So as they're making plans, I just quickly get a bunch of prefabs from Unity and put together a city, the one you're looking at right now on this video, actually, and I say, yeah, here we go, here's the city that's I knew you were gonna try to kill everyone, so haha, you can plan things better now with some visual aid. Haha. I kept the most perfect poker face the entire time, so they actually bought it when I said I had this planned. I just knew they would have less fun and feel guilty if they knew I hadn't prepared for this and I was just improvising, because my players sometimes feel guilty if I don't get to use my prep work because they want to be nice to me. Despite being complete psychopaths, they're actually nice to me, which I appreciate. But yeah, if you're wondering how it went from there, yeah. They burned the fucking city to the ground. Like, they blocked off exits, set traps, explosives, dug holes so people trying to escape poisonous gases would just fall into it. It was a nightmare, and it didn't really stop there. Basically, at that point, they realized they were in too deep, so they just decided to side with the evil guy because he was probably the only person who wouldn't execute them at this point. They committed more and more war crimes, and you might be thinking, oh, so it was just an evil campaign after that. And I would agree with you. My players wouldn't, though. They maintain, to this day, that they were the heroes and they did nothing wrong. And you know what? I actually had a lot of fun. Like, make no mistake, it was a nightmare to run. That whole thing just turned into a weird tower defense session, and it was weird as hell, but really fun. And looking back on it, it was one of her most memorable campaigns. Like, I did prep for it, but sometimes it's just the way it goes. D&D is a collaborative story, and I had my share of the story, and their share was not what I had in mind, but you know what? If I didn't love my players' input, I would just write a book instead. This is just what it is. There's a lot of things I could have done. I could have assumed that they were totally the kind of people who would just use the Behelit from Berserk. If I had done that, I probably would have prepped for this campaign a different way. But you know what? I'm actually glad I didn't see it coming, and I just got there and got to be just surprised and sitting there in horror as I realized what my players were doing. That was really fun, and honestly, that is why I play D&D, is just watching my friends be goofballs, and extremely creative goofballs at that. So, all in all, what lessons can we learn from all of this? I don't know. Never offer your players the opportunity to go triple extremist genocide person, because there is a non-zero chance they might take it, even if they show no sign of wanting to play like a murder hobo in the last 4 sessions. That is a lesson, but I think the bigger lesson is just, roll with it, have fun. As long as everybody's having fun, it's all good.